Hello again everyone, welcome to my channel. Today's video is going to be about books I'm going to be reading in 2021. Before I get into it, I just want to say that a lot of the books on this list are series that I haven't finished and are going to finish. So I apologize if I don't really give a proper explanation on what the books are. The first book I'm going to be reading, and this one was published last year, the 6th of October last year, is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I have read a V.E. Schwab book before. It was her debut book that was recently reprinted, and that one is called The Near Witch. I liked it, but I wasn't a huge fan of it. I have heard plenty of other good things about her other books, like the Vengeful series. What's the other one? The Dark Duet series, I think it is, like the Savage Song, and another book I can't remember off the top of my head. And then oh my gosh, it's the London one. I can't actually, let me have a look. It should be on here. A Darker Shade of Magic series. I've heard good things about her other books. So, I've heard exceptional things about this book. Basically, it's about Addie LaRue makes a pact with the devil to trade her soul for immortality. But with that comes a price. She can't do art, she can't write. People that she's met like 1 minute ago will instantly forget her. Meaning she is forgotten by just about everyone who she meets in her daily life. Until one day, in a second-hand bookstore, she meets someone who ends up remembering her. Or I just had a look, and it's set in Manhattan. I was very lucky enough to go to New York 2 years ago. It'll actually be 2 years ago come May. And I loved it. It was incredible. So it's definitely high up on my TBR list to read. I've heard this book is quite emotional and gut-wrenching. A beautiful novel, but it's bittersweet, is what I've heard people saying. The next book I'm going to be reading in 2021 is A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. I have read her book, Uprooted, and I quite enjoyed it. I wanted it to be longer because I wanted a bit more from at least one character. It's quite atmospheric. I think this book would have been better if there had been multiple points of view. I just wanted to hear more about the dragon and more about him. But like I said, I enjoyed it. So I'm going to be reading A Deadly Education. So A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik is the start of a brand new series in which there are no teachers, no holidays, and the friendships that you create are purely strategic. Because everything in this school wants to kill you. And the only way you can graduate from this school is if you survive at the end of the year. So there's said to be a few monsters in this book. It's another fantasy. And there is said to be humor, a little bit of a love interest I've heard other people say. Quite excited to read this book. And the second book in A Deadly Education, which is The Graduate, very beautiful cover, I love the cover, is coming out this year. So hopefully I can get a start on that one and then read it as the books come out. The next book, or should I say books, that I'm going to be reading this year. Now let's see if I can get this in the shot. Which way should I go? Uh-oh. Stay in. Is the Witcher series by Andrzej Sapkowski. I ended up watching the first series of this fantasy series. The TV show on Netflix, I should say. And I really enjoyed it. I really did. I want to rewatch it before the second one comes out. If the second one comes out. It should be coming out this year, hopefully. So basically, and for a fantasy series, I mean, look how short the books are. You never hear of that, do ya? No, you don't. Very big plus in my book. So, Geralt of Rivia is a witcher He uses his legendary power and lifelong training to protect the innocent by hunting the vile fiends that ravage the land. But not all monsters are evil, and not everything fair is good. For someone who has seen the show, I don't know too much about this. Like I said, Geralt of Rivia, he's been trained as a witcher. I actually really don't know. Which is quite sad in a way. So, I guess I'll let you know in the wrap-ups. Yes, I think I will. Now, this next one is not actually a book per se, it's more an author, and that is Brandon Sanderson. I've heard nothing but exceptional things about this author. I will eventually get to the Cosmere, but I've noticed on his website that the Skyward series, Skyward, oh my gosh, my accent, I can't say things properly. So yeah, the Skyward series is going to be coming out. The third one seems to be coming out this year. So I want to read those ones first, and then I might end up reading, what book should I read next from him? So I have this plan, right? Because the Skyward series is going to be a full book series, I want to focus more on that first, since it is an ongoing series, and then I'm going to make my way through the Cosmere. So I'm first going to start off that journey by reading either Elantris or Warbreaker first. I'm not sure which one. Then I'm going to read all the Mistborns, and then I'm going to eventually go into the Stormlight Archive. So like I said, I've heard nothing but exceptional things about him. Yeah, you're going to hear your criticisms, but I have a good feeling that I'm going to enjoy reading his books. Okay, next book, which is actually going to be a book series I'm going to be reading, is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. A trilogy, and it recently finished. When was the last book released? Let me have a look. Last year, 17th of November was when the series finished. And since it's a completed series, why not just binge it? For someone who has heard a lot of things about this book, I really can't tell you a lot about it off the top of my head. So I'm just gonna, we're back to the trusty old phone here. So, The Poppy War is a brilliantly imaginative epic fantasy debut inspired by the bloody history of China's 20th century and filled with treachery and magic. When Rin aced the Keiju test to find the most talented students of the Empire, it was a shock to everyone, to the test officials, who couldn't believe a war orphan from Rooster Province could pass without cheating, to Rin's guardians, who had hoped to get rich by marrying her off, and to Rin, who realized she was finally free from a life of servitude. That she got into Sinigard, the most elite military school in Nikan, was even more surprising. But surprises aren't always good. Because being a dark-skinned peasant girl from the south is not an easy thing in Sinigard, fighting the prejudice of rival classmates, Rin discovers that she possesses a lethal, unearthly power, an aptitude for the nearly mythical art of shamanism. Exploring the depths of her gift with the help of a psychoactive substances and a seemingly insane teacher, Rin learns that gods long thought dead are very much alive, and that mastering these powers could mean more than just surviving school. For while the Nakara Empire is at peace, the Federation of Mugen, I'm really sorry if I'm pronouncing this wrong, still lurks across a narrow sea. The Federation occupied Nikan for decades after the First Poppy War, and only barely lost the continent in the second. And while most people calmly go about their lives, a few are aware that a third Poppy War is just a spark away. This is actually, now that I read that, I'm starting to remember some things. This is said to be a grimdark fantasy, and it deals a lot with historical events in China. It seems to be a historical fiction fantasy book. And like I said, it's grimdark, a lot of trigger warnings, so just be a little wary of that. And a thing I've heard one person say that not a lot of people have said, whose reviews I have seen, is that it has a little bit of comedy in it, it has a bit of humour, and I'm curious to see how that is going to play out. So I don't know when I'm going to be reading any of these books, but I'm definitely going to be reading them this year. Next book. Actually, I'm realizing that a lot of these books are book series. So the next book series, which also happens to be a trilogy, is The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. I've had my eye on this book for years, and I finally I'm going to be reading it. Okay, let me just read it to you because I can never do a good summary of what the book is going to be about. Okay, this is the way the world ends, for the last time. It starts with the Great Red Rift, across the heart of the world's soul spewing ash that blots out the sun. It starts with death, with a murdered son and a missing daughter. It starts with betrayal and long dormant wounds rising to fester. This is the stillness. Elaine's long familiar with catastrophe, where the power of the earth is wielded as a weapon, and where there is no mercy. I've heard a lot of people talk about this book, and it's in second person, so there's going to be a lot of you instead of I being first person, or her or he or she or his being third person. I'm sorry if I look like I'm weird, my foot is going asleep sitting here like this. Fantasy, like I said in the Get to Know Me booktuber book tag thingamajiggy that I did before, fantasy is one of the main genres I'm going to be reading, and that's definitely clear from the books I'm going to be reading this year. So I don't know what else to say other than it's a trilogy, it's a completed trilogy, so again, I can easily binge read it, and that's going to be that for that. Again, continuing with the theme here, where a lot of the books I'm going to be reading are series and sequels. The next one, and I'm not going to spend too much time explaining to you what this book is about. Well, I'm not really explaining, I'm just telling you from, again, the trusty old device here. And that's going to be the second book in the Outlander series, Dragonfly and Ember. I love the series. I love it a lot. I'm not going to be too upset if I don't get to it, because these books do get pretty long. Like, I think, where is it? A Breath of Snow and Ashes, which is the 6th book in the series, is just over 1,400 pages long. So I'm not going to be too upset if I don't get to these books in a hurry. The series is said to be a 10-book series. So if I just take my time with it, who knows when the 9th and 10th book in the series is going to be out. So I'm just going to take my time with it. But I know I have to finish reading the series because I read the first one, Outlander. I remember when, I think it was 2018. Loved it. Gave it 5 stars. Thought it was incredible. This book series is known for its romance. There's a lot of romance in this one, especially between the popular characters, Jamie and Claire. Everyone loves Jamie and Claire. Everyone. So I'm excited to continue on with the series. I have seen the series. I have to watch season 4 and 5, which is another to-do list as well. So like I said, I don't want to go too much about it. The next 2 books I'm going to be reading are books 2 and 3 in the Themis File trilogy. I read this book, when did I read this book? Was it last year or the year before? Can't remember. But I ended up really enjoying it. It's basically, well, it's sci-fi, let me say. It's a sci-fi trilogy. So, basically what the series is about, a girl sneaks out late one night to ride her bike on the streets. She then, falls into a hole into a hand, the shape of a metal hand. Then as she gets older, she dedicates her whole life to discovery of this big metal hand that she found and what it means and what it is. She dedicates her life to potentially finding others. It could be like the statue that she found when she was younger, and to learning how to use it. It is written in interview format, which I actually quite enjoyed, and I really enjoyed it. So I'm gonna finally finish off the series. The next series that I'm going to be reading, I'm going to be catching up with the Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children series. I thought the first one was a bit cliche, a bit tropey of YA books, but then the second and third one, I absolutely loved it. Now, I don't know which is the 4th one, so I don't know what I'm going to be putting up on the screen, but I don't know what the 4th one is called. Map of Days, A Conference of Birds, something, I know. It's an ongoing series. I think the 6th one is going to be the last one. It's actually an extension to a trilogy. There was originally meant to be 3 books, so a trilogy, but then the author extended it, or whether it was always meant to be a 6-book series, I'm not entirely sure, but all I know is that he's extending the series, and that's all I know basically. And as I said, I'm not going to talk too much about it because it is a little bit spoilery from events in the previous books. Now, looking at my laptop, there are a couple of books here I'm not going to be talking about because I want to add them in challenge videos, so I'm not going to be talking too much about them. I'm not going to be too upset if I don't get to it because I'm already going to be reading a lot of series, and that one is the rest of the books in the Dune series. I'm going to start off with Dune Messiah, obviously because that's going to be the second in the series. It is a question mark. I think I want to watch the movie Dune first before I read the other books in the series. I ended up reading Dune last year. Really enjoyed it. I would have liked a little bit more action at the end, but it is a bit more character driven. Incredible world building. Incredible world building. Absolutely loved it. It's just, I'm used to the big finale being action packed, and this doesn't really have it because it's just mainly about Paul. And I don't really think this is a spoiler alert, but if it is, I'll have it on the bottom. But it's just basically Paul becoming Maud Deeb. So it's more character driven. I like my fantasy to have a little bit of action in it. And there was some action in it. And there was quite a few, especially towards the end, there were time skips. There were time jumps. And I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I want to I want to watch the movie first. It is coming out this year. It bloody better be coming out this year because that trailer looks so damn good. I will be reading the rest of the series. So, Dune Messiah is basically a continuation from Dune. I don't know if it picks up straight away, but it's just basically a continuation of the story of Paul Atreides. So I'm not going to say too much, so that's all I'm going to say about it. And I've heard it gets better. The books in the series, I'm not going to be reading Frank Herbert's son's take on the Dune series. I'm just going to be reading Frank Herbert's books, and that is it. Okay, so that's about it. I think I've touched base on just about everything I want to read. Quite a lot of series. There's only about one standalone in this video that I talked about. So I'm going to leave it there and let me know what books you're going to be reading in 2021, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.